And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and I'm here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to talk about job hunting, starting and running a business, and building wealth. So the whole financial side of our lives. So today the subject is kind of timely and ironic at the same time. So I'm going to be talking about what to do during the slow times of your business. Although it seems like everyone to whom I've spoken so far this year has had a furiously fast start to the year. I know I was crazy busy in January, and now that February has started, actually things have calmed down somewhat, which is good, because I don't think I could have taken the January pace all year long. But in any event, there are times in our businesses where it seems like things have slowed down. Maybe we're getting nervous. Oh no, I'm not going to get any more business. But it's actually good to have those periods from time to time. If nothing else, they just give us a chance to rest and catch up from the hyper busy times. But they also allow us to really invest time in our businesses. And I think that when we're busy and we're taking care of clients or doing our regular marketing or whatever we're doing, we don't necessarily take the time to step back a little bit, look at the big picture, get a sense of what may be working, what may not be working, how could we do things more efficiently. So I came up with a half a dozen thoughts on what we can do during the slow times, and so I'm going to share those with you today. So I think one of the first things to consider is just because business isn't booming doesn't mean that you're failing. All right. There are lots of reasons why your business may slow down. It may just be the sort of natural rhythm of your business. Look, accountants are the perfect example of this, or I should say tax preparers or accountants who focus on tax preparation. So they're very busy the first 3.5, 4 months of the year, getting income tax returns done. In the middle of the year, they tend to be much less busy. And then toward the end of the year, they get busy again as they get involved in tax planning, with year-end tax planning with their clients, right? So there's a natural rhythm to that business. Air conditioning, HVAC contractors, would be kind of the opposite, in the sense that during the summertime they're crazy busy repairing or replacing everybody's air conditioning units, less so in the spring and fall, and then in the winter they're replacing heating units, right? So I think one of the key things is to figure out what is the natural rhythm for your business. I know when I had my real estate company, things would typically slow down in the summertime. Part of that was because a lot of my clients went on vacation. I had one client that used to go to France for a month every summer. Another reason is, and I had a commercial real estate company, so we did property management, things like that. People, and the buildings that my company managed tended to cater for single people or two single people. So for the most part, they weren't moving in the summer, as opposed to families who tend to wait for the summer to move so that they're not interrupting their children's school. And so, again, there was kind of a natural rhythm to the business. And then it would slow down also around the end of the year holidays. And so key is just because your business is slow, it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean there's necessarily anything wrong, especially if you're new to business. That there's a tendency to kind of freak out about that. But give some thought as to why this might be going on, okay, and approach it, calmly. Now, if you are new to the business and you're sort of caught in that cycle of you do a bunch of marketing and then a bunch of new business comes in, and so you stop doing the marketing to take care of the new clients and customers, and you take care of them, but since you haven't done any marketing, all of a sudden there isn't any more business, and so now you got to gear up marketing again. That's a challenge, with which you have to learn to deal, right? And the key in that case is to figure out ways that you can continue to do your marketing even as you're servicing the business that's coming in. That's that's another kind of natural rhythm to a business, but it's not a particularly good one because it's always a sort of feast or famine modality. It's very difficult to deal with that emotionally and financially. And so, part of maturing in a business is setting up systems and a schedule whereby you can be marketing on a consistent basis throughout the year. Okay, so for example, week in and week out, you see me doing 3 shows on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday mornings, and then of course I do my every other Thursday afternoon show, which is not a marketing show. That's just one I do for fun. But I do these shows week in, week out, and over the time that I've been doing them, I've figured out ways to be able to support doing the shows even during my busiest periods. So last month, January, I mentioned, was crazy busy, and I ended up having to work on Sundays sometimes, which I had gotten out of doing, so that I could have a weekend off. But when we have our own businesses, when we're a solo entrepreneur, sometimes that is the solution. Or sometimes I worked in evenings as well. So figure out how to do that, and once you figure out how to keep a sustained marketing effort, then you can start figuring out ways to handle that effort more efficiently, more productively. Okay. And that's always the process. And in my experience, we can always wring greater productivity and greater efficiency out of a process, and reduce our times with tools like large language models and other AI tools around. So it's in some ways easier than ever to do to gain those efficiencies. Okay, so when you have a quiet season, or a month, maybe a quiet month or whatever it is, so that's an ideal time to, for example, work on an issue like creating a sustainable marketing plan. Okay, and it's also a good time to look at the metrics of your business. So if you're not doing monthly financial reports on your business, which I encourage you to do, okay, take the time to do that. And don't just go back and do the last month that was completed. If you haven't done them in 3 or 4 months, go back and do them for 3 or 4 months so you can compare month by month how the business is performing. Look at those financial metrics. Look at the metrics on your client growth, on your customer growth. Look at how client satisfaction is progressing. If you don't know, take the time to reach out to your clients just to check, just to touch base with them and check in. Hey, not looking to do anything other than find out how things are going. How are we doing? Or how did we do in the last transaction or matter that we handled for you, whatever that is, right? And the reason for checking in and analyzing those metrics, client satisfaction, team performance, if you've got, employees or independent contractors, take a look at how they're doing. And the reason for doing that is to look for incremental improvements. Okay. This search for sort of, large business revolutionizing uh, possibilities is not nearly as beneficial as finding a number of small improvements that you can make on an incremental basis that over time will really help your business become more efficient, run better, etc. So, and the thing about looking for big ways to improve the business is they take a lot of time and sometimes a lot of resources to implement. Whereas if you look for incremental improvements, so when you have a slow week or a slow few days, you can implement that small change and you'll get some benefit there. But if over a 2 or 3 month period, you can implement a half a dozen of those small changes taken together, they will have a lot more impact than trying to make some very large change that might take you, 2 or 3 weeks of concentrated effort in order to put it into place. Okay. All right. So look for opportunity in stability or opportunity in slow periods. So that's number one. Number two, invest in systems and infrastructure. So if you've got a kind of a slow period, where pressure is low, as I was saying a minute ago, you can look for ways to upgrade processes, maybe take on the use of a new software program, or look at ways that you're handling workflow that you can make go more efficiently. So I know for my business, I do a lot. I do weekly and monthly reporting depending on the type of matter, the client, etc. Right. And on the one hand, it's valuable because it gives me an opportunity to periodically evaluate where things are at with a particular client. On the other hand, sometimes it can be very time consuming. So, for example, I have one client for whom I put together a monthly financial report. There's a number of the client essentially owns a number of properties, owns a business, has personal financial issue or matters that I handle, and so I've been working over the last several months on how I can efficiently put that information together. First of all, because it's something that I have to deliver to the client, but secondly, so that I can spend the time reviewing the information, not compiling it. Because reviewing the information is where the benefit is for both me and the client. Compiling it is just the time to compile it. Right now, you'd say, well, why don't I farm that out? Well, that's a possibility. But until I've got a template that I like for presenting the information, right? I don't want to farm it out because the tendency then will be to just, you know, let it be what it is instead of getting it as optimized as I can. And what took me, several hours to put together the first time I did it is now down to about an hour and a half. One of the things I have to straighten out is getting reports from other people that I need to include in this report. So, how do I streamline those or how do I get those things happening automatically, right? These are the kinds of incremental changes in my workflow that can save me time. So, if I can figure out a way to get, for example, one particular report on the operation of their business, if I can get a way for that to be sent to me just automatically after the end of each month, that will save me having to email the person, explain what I want, And then if there's changes that need to be made, email her again, et cetera, right? So again, these are, working on workflow efficiencies. Now, this is kind of my thing. I like to find ways to make my workflow go more efficient, be more efficient, I should say. It's kind of a game I play with myself in terms of how can I, get tasks done ever more quickly. And it's been my whole business life that way. So that may not be, anything you particularly enjoy, but it could be something that would help you out a lot. So another thing to consider doing in terms of investing in systems and infrastructure is to document procedures so that if a different person in your company has to take on doing something, it's documented. You can just hand it to them, and if they have any questions, they can let you know, rather than you're taking a lot of time to train them up. Okay. On the other hand, it may be a good opportunity to do some staff training or some staff cross training, right? So that if someone in your organization is sick or they're on vacation or whatever, so the workflow can continue, even though the key person for doing that is not there. Another thing to do is to look for ways to automate repetitive tasks to save time, right? Again, these days with AIs, etc., there are more opportunities to automate tasks than there ever has been before. So whether it's setting up your bill payments to pay automatically, right? So that you don't have to write. Is anybody writing checks anymore? I don't think so. I mean, there are few people, of course, but these days with between credit cards and bank websites that will allow payments to be made automatically, whether they're done through ACH or whether they're done through the bank sending out a check, that can all be automated. Okay, now if the payment amount varies, so then okay, that may limit the amount, the flexibility you have on automating payments. But I know for credit cards, for example, my credit cards are set up to automatically pay the not the minimum payment, the statement balance due, right? So I don't get charged interest on the one hand, and on the other hand, that full payment gets made. And so on the credit card website, I can set it up to just pull that payment from my bank account. The only thing I have to be concerned about is that there's sufficient funds in my bank account to cover, and that's fortunately cash flow is not an issue. And so hey, that all works smoothly behind the scenes. And then once a month I go in and I reconcile both my business and my personal accounts. I generate my monthly income and expense reports and a balance sheet, and I know the state of my business, right? So all of these ways of creating better systems and better infrastructure, again, you can just do a couple of small things. Maybe you have a slow day. You anticipated a bunch of meetings. For whatever reason, they got canceled. That's kind of what happened for me today. Today was supposed to be a jam-packed day, especially since I'm having dental surgery later this afternoon, and then a meeting right in the middle of the day. The person had to reschedule it, and so I was able to move something else into that slot, and I have much more of a relaxed day to day. And so I'll be able to look to a couple of streamlining tasks that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. Okay, so invest in systems and infrastructure. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend money on these things. It may be just taking the time to set certain things up so that they will save you time in the future. Okay, next, experiment with low risk innovations. So maybe you have a product or a service or a marketing strategy that you wanted to consider or that you've been thinking about. So if you've got a slow week or a slow couple of days, so that would be an ideal opportunity to test that out and see how it works. So in I believe it was November of last year. I had kind of a slow period. It was getting toward the end of the year. Thanksgiving was coming up, and then, of course, on into Christmas and New Year. And I'd had it in the back of my mind to try out Google Ads, which is I use YouTube ads, but in this case this was kind of the broader Google ad strategy, and wanted to see how it might work. I know a friend of mine has had great success with them, and so I took the time to get them set up and try them out. And once I got it running, then it was just a matter of taking a few minutes every day or two to see how the ads were performing. And in the end, I concluded that it wasn't useful, at least for the purpose for which I was using them, which was to grow the audience for one of my other media ventures called Probate and Trust TV. The cost of acquiring a new subscriber was just too high. So but that's the kind of low risk innovation or experimentation that you can do when you have some slow time. In this case, it was a marketing strategy. Okay, it didn't work. That's fine. Not everything is going to work. But what it didn't do was take away from my ability to take care of my clients. In addition to, being again too costly on a prescriber acquisition basis. So try those things out. You may have a service that you've been thinking about offering. So figure out a quick way to test it out to see if you think any of your existing clientele might be interested in the additional service. Or maybe you've got you want to try it out to try and target a new potential clientele. So figure out a quick limited way to do that, get that set up during the slow time, and then monitoring it typically doesn't take nearly as much time as the setup, and so you can do that. Okay. And then also, the thing about experimenting with sort of low risk options is that the consequences aren't so huge when if they don't work out. You haven't lost time away from servicing your clients or taking care of your customers. You know whatever monies may have been lost, if you do it on a limited basis, that won't necessarily be that costly. But having tried the experiment, it may reveal some hidden opportunities that you didn't think about, and now you've got something new to with which to experiment next time you have a slow period. Okay, so think about what and just keep a list of them, right? I was talking with the staff of one of the companies I oversee, and I work in the Apple universe. The computer I'm using right now is an iMac. The I have my iPad behind me. I have my iPhone, right? So I use Apple Reminders, which is a terrific productivity tool. And if there's something that I need to do, I can put it in there. And here, this just gave me an idea. I need to create a separate list for ideas to test out, kind of thing. So after the show, I'll have to put myself a separate, right, where there's not due dates on them, but if I've got a little downtime, I can click to that list and say, hey, you know what, I've got a couple of hours here that I didn't anticipate having. I'm going to try, this idea out, and just keep a running ideas list. So these are, just keep a list of them, and that way, when you have a few minutes, you can test it out. Okay, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk some more. When life brings unexpected changes, managing inherited property shouldn't add to your stress. Magnum Properties specializes in probate and trust real estate management. We handle the complexities while you focus on what matters most. From property maintenance to tenant relations, from legal compliance to maximizing value, we're your trusted partner through every step. Magnum Properties, Inc., turning property challenges into peace of mind. Call us today at 213 264 4396 or visit magnumprops.com. All right, so some other things that you can think about doing when you have some slow time is, and I mentioned this just real briefly at the beginning, but it is to strengthen customer relationships. So uh, reach out proactively to your clients or customers just to check in or maybe offer some kind of added value to them. So if you're a professional and you've got, a bit of a slow period, so it never hurts to just reach out to your clients. Now it's interesting. I was having this discussion with my friend Bill yesterday driving back from a meeting. We used to do a lot more reaching out by telephone to our client bases, but we found over the last, I don't know, year or two that that's not nearly as um, efficient, I guess, as it used to be because people don't pick up their phones anymore, right? And I'm the perfect example. There are only a half a dozen to 10 people that if they call, I'm going to pick up I'm going to pick up the call. And if their name doesn't show up on my phone, I don't know who it is who's calling, so I'm not going to take my time to answer that call because too often they're marketing calls or whatever, and I don't have the time to deal with that. So, if someone wants to market to me, then they need to reach out to me, generally speaking, through LinkedIn and work to build a relationship. That's my perspective on marketing. In general, I don't want to do business with someone who is looking for kind of a one-off situation, right? And I do the same thing. So if I need a new vendor, I reach out to the people I know, either in that location or in that same, business, and say, hey, do you know someone, for example, who handles insurance in Colorado, right? Um, I'm working on a project for a client in Colorado. Don't know any insurance agents there. Reached out to someone with whom I was already doing business in Colorado and said, hey, can you refer me to some insurance agents? Happy to, right? Generally speaking, people are happy to make referrals. It's useful for them because they're able to help somebody else out, and it's useful for me. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win-win, right? A win for everybody, right? So those are the kinds of things that you can do. These days, I tend to do that by email or telephone. I'm sorry, email or text message, I should say, or in some cases by LinkedIn messages. Those are my three primary modes of communication. Okay, and the telephone is really, for me, it's a meeting tool. So I might have a telephone conference with somebody to discuss a matter, but it's not a reaching out, touching base kind of tool anymore. Because again, I think most people find it too disruptive. So, in that case, send out emails to your best client, or if you're on that kind of basis with them, send them a text message. Hey, just touching base. Wanted to see how you were doing. If there's anything you need, or anything that you're working on that I might be able to help you with. Maybe I have a resource for you, or I can refer you to someone who can help you. Please let me know. Right. The asynchronicity of email and text messages, I think, is very beneficial. I know it is for me, because sometimes I don't have the ability to pick up a phone call right then and there. But if there's a text message, I can leave it unread. And then when I have time, I can respond to that text message. Same with an email. So look for, I would say, asynchronous ways to strengthen your client relationships. Don't make it necessarily about selling them more stuff, but about helping them. How can I help you? If you're working on something, and you're missing a resource, or you need some kind of input, my group of relationships is at your disposal to help you with whatever it is that with which you're dealing. Okay, so that's something you can do. Um, you could put together some educational content that you can offer to your existing clientele, or some kind of referral initiative, right? So my shows are primarily educational content, right? And it's there to help my clientele out, whether it's the lawyers or the accountants with whom I deal, or whether it's the heirs and beneficiaries, or whether it's my family multifamily office clientele. Everything I do is geared toward helping them gain more knowledge, gain more insight, and make their business lives, even their personal lives, better. If we can make our business lives more efficient, then one of two things will happen. Either we can do more business, and so we have more resources to use in our personal lives, or we have more time that we can devote to our personal lives, right? That's kind of the point. So in either way, look for opportunities to do that. Now, it's interesting. I was last Friday. I was over on Montana Avenue, which is a street in Santa Monica, California. My dry cleaners is there. I only go see her about every 3 weeks because it's a bit of a drive to get there. It's just I'll give her a free plug. Miriam at Brown's Cleaners, on Santa Monica, on Montana Boulevard in Santa Monica. The best dry cleaner in all of Los Angeles, bar none. Okay, has never damaged any of the garments that I've brought to her. Now I've been patronizing her for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. But afterwards, I was driving home, and I happened to notice a new store, and I popped in there. Here, here's the store. I'll give her a free plug too. There you go. It's called O&V California, for Olive and Vine, I think, California. The woman's name is Tana Harris. So she sells uh, olive oil and balsamic vinegar. So because I keep kosher, I couldn't try the vinegar, but I tried some of the olive oils. They are mind-blowingly good, right? And so we started talking. She's new in business, just a few months, and we were talking about different ways to market a business. And I mentioned to her that I recommended that she start doing a weekly or a periodic video podcast. Her store is a beautiful space. There's artwork in it. To see the olive oils and the bins in which the vinegar is kept, and she makes these uh, um, canned. They're in jars of tomatoes, and just beautiful stuff. And there's so much to talk about when one is dealing with food, and as I often do in those situations, I said, look, I do 3 to 4 shows a week. I'm happy to, on a pro bono basis, just explain to you how to get this all set up. And she's like, oh, that's very nice. I appreciate it. I said, but I will tell you a little secret. I've probably made this offer over the last 4 years 100 times. You want to guess how many people have taken me up on it? And she said 4, and I said 0. Right? It seems so daunting a thing to do, but to do regular educational content on a YouTube channel, okay, is a terrific marketing scheme. I have built my most recent business, the one in which I am now, almost exclusively through LinkedIn and the shows that I do for my YouTube channel. The two work interactively, right? And so, to be doing educational content, especially if you're able to highlight clients or potential clients in that educational material and help them market their businesses, it's a terrific way to build relationships, right? So, the reality is taking the time to strengthen relationships during the slow times of your business will pay off in the busy season. There's no question that that's the case. Okay, number 5, invest in personal and team development. Now, if you're a solo entrepreneur like me, so I don't really have a whole lot of opportunities to do team development per se, at least not within my own business. However, I oversee other companies in my role as a probate administrator. And so, depending on what's happening with that company, I can I have the opportunity to work with the teams at those companies to look at doing professional development. So I was at a staff meeting for one of those companies yesterday, and one of the things I talked about with the staff was what opportunities they were considering for professional development. Okay, because we're at the kind of the beginning of the year, and it's time to kind of look forward into the year and plan some of that out so that it can be accommodated within the workflow of the organization, right? And that's the kind of thing. If you have team members in your own company, that's the kind of thing to do. Now, this comes, I think, with somewhat of a philosophy. So some people have the philosophy that they're not going to encourage professional growth among their team members because those team members may outgrow their company and then they're going to lose them. Okay, or they're going to gain skills and then they're going to end up having to pay them more, and so they don't want to do that. I think that's a shame to look at it that way. I want all the people with whom I'm working to grow their professional skills, grow their experience, have greater opportunity. If I can't accommodate that opportunity within the sort of the things that are within my purview, okay, well, so then they hopefully they'll find something better, more challenging for them, and will maintain the relationship, because I had a hand in helping them move up in their professional lives, and that can only come back to help me and them in future times, right? So my philosophy is just that. I want to encourage everybody to grow professionally because it's for our greater benefit. Okay. And so I think it's important to let our team members know that we are committed to their professional growth. And I think it's okay to say up front, look, I hope you will always grow professionally. And, if you feel like you're stymied here, that your skills, knowledge, skills, and experience have grown beyond what I can offer you. Come to me. Let's talk about that. It may mean that you'll have to move on, but maybe there's some other way that we can continue to work together, where you can feel like you have continued opportunity to grow, but maybe in a different context than what you're doing now. I think it's good to be candid with people about that. It'll avoid potential bad will because they feel like, well, Kevin, invested so much in my professional growth, but I feel like I'm stymied here, but I'll look like an ingrate if I quit and go somewhere else. No. That there's no point to that. Let's have open, honest conversations about these. And so everybody, we can raise the tide together, so to speak. So I think that's really the perspective to take on team development, team member development, I should say. Team development itself is a little bit different, where we're learning to work together better as a team. A lot of people don't like that. I get it. It's so much of that stuff is so cheesy, boring, useless. But I think there is a place for team development at an organization if it's done well, if it's done in the proper context, and a slow period, especially if going back to what I talked about at the beginning of the show, if you've figured out the rhythm of your company and you know, for example, that July is a slow time, so maybe plan some kind of team development project for July that that will really be a worthwhile exercise that will actually generate good results. Okay. Now, the other part of this is your own personal development. So, you may want to get some additional certifications. You may want to do, you may want to um, branch out in learning about another aspect of something that could connect with your business. And so a slow time is an ideal time to do that. Okay. And again, just like trying out some kind of new marketing initiative or whatever, it's good to explore, even if in the end you conclude, well, this is not really for me. Okay, good. Right. So that's one, because those things tend to niggle in the back of our brains. Oh, I really think I should try this out. Okay, once you've tried it out, if you've concluded it's not for you, good. It's not going to niggle in the back of your head anymore. That's one less thing, distracting you, each day or whatever, however often you think about it. So look at those kind of opportunities. Take some classes, get involved in a certification program, whatever it might be. Do some staff training where maybe you do the training. What I found, and I've been teaching one thing or another for half a century, more than half a century at this point, is we never learn something quite so well as when we're teaching it. Okay. That's what I found as a teacher and trainer. And so because we have to learn it so deeply to be able to, especially to be able to explain it thoroughly to people who are new to it. Okay. So we have to be able to really break it down for them. And it requires much more knowledge to explain something simply than it does to explain something in a complex way. Right? So consider doing that, and that could be a team building exercise perhaps, or maybe you put together some kind of program where, let's say you have 8 members of your team, each one of you is going to teach something to the other members of the group. Maybe it's by way of cross training or something like that. And so everybody gets to be a student, everybody gets to be a teacher, and that becomes a team development exercise as well. There's all kinds of things you can do like that. Okay, finally, excuse me, look at doing some strategic planning for growth and cash flow. So take some time. So take some time to examine and reassess your goals, your budgets, your projections. Okay, it's one thing to look at your monthly financial reports. It's another thing to compare them to your goals, okay, and assess, how am I doing? Do I need to make alterations? Okay, I do that once a month. Okay, after, as soon as I can after the month is ended. Sometimes on the very last day of the month when I know what the results are. Usually the next day or at most 2 days later, I'm assessing how well I'm doing vis-a-vis my conditions of satisfaction and my goals, both professionally and personally. Okay. So I've made that part of my, what we call in the military, battle rhythm. But if you haven't done that, slow times are a great time to do that. Okay. Look at or try look to identify opportunities to diversify your revenue or expand your offerings, right? Where is there an add-on product or an add-on service that won't take you a lot of time to learn to do, but is something that your clients, your existing clientele may want, and since you already have a relationship with them, it could be something that you could do to extend or to generate additional revenue and extend that relationship without a big investment on your part. Okay. And finally, quiet time, it gives us the opportunity, and I'm ending up where I started. It gives us the opportunity to stand back, take a look at the big picture, and really assess where we're at. You know, there's a famous song by a singer named Mac Davis. He was still is one of my favorite vocalists, and the song is called "You Got to Stop and Smell the Roses." Right? Now, he's talking about in the context of daily life, love your family, hug your wife, hug your children. I mean, it's a fantastic song, and every all of that is, of course, true. But we need to do the same things for our businesses as well. We need to periodically take a step back from them to gain the overall picture and stop and smell the roses of our businesses. At this staff meeting, I've already mentioned a couple of times, for one of the people there, we've been working together now for a couple of years, and she was very frustrated about something, and so we were talking about it. I was looking to help her kind of work it through. And one of the things I mentioned to her was, I know we've been so extraordinarily busy the last couple of years. I hope you'll take some time to step back and see how much you have grown professionally over these last 2 years. You know, we started working together under very stressful circumstances. There was a lot of chaos. It was just things were raining down on us, and all we could do was tread water, so that we didn't drown, is what it felt like. I said, I encourage you to think about where this company is now, where you're at now, the kind of things that you're doing today that I suspect maybe you'd wanted to be able to do for a long time, didn't have the opportunity to do, how well you're doing them, and just hopefully gain some satisfaction from that. Take that step back and gain some satisfaction with the business that you've built. Maybe it hasn't lit the world on fire the way you thought it was going to, or maybe not yet, would be the more appropriate way to express that. But take some satisfaction in what you've built. And a slow period is actually a great time to do that, because we can look at these different aspects of our companies, of our professional practices, and think about where we started, where we're at now. Okay. And then use that as a springboard for additional growth. Okay. So that's what to do. Don't wait for a crisis. Take advantage of the slow times, take advantage of the lulls, and we'll build, you'll build an even stronger business than you have today. So, I've got a message here from someone watching from South Sudan, Juba City. I think it's Niall Chan. I hopefully I pronounced his name right. I'm just going to send him a quick message here. Okay, so I thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate your viewership and your listenership. Let's see. I'm going to double check on this before I say so. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this is my last show for this week. So full slate of shows next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time Monday, Trust and Estates Weekly, 10 a.m. Tuesday, Business Lessons from the Military, 10 a.m. Wednesday, 1 week from today, the next edition of People Making Money. And then, of course, don't forget to join me at Jiggers's Place every other Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time for a cocktail and a schmooze. And we'll talk about all the things that have nothing to do with finances. So if you have any questions, comments, criticisms, social media links are in the show notes. Feel free to post them. And if you're watching this on Spotify or Apple Podcast and you like the show, please, leave me a review. I'd really appreciate that. It gives me an opportunity to potentially help more people. So wishing you a wonderful rest of the day and signing off as I always do. Marie, darling, you are my belle. Courage at all times, my friends.